Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally, of course, the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we have basically managed able to, if I'm assuming correctly, that we did somehow manage able to continue exploring for the forms of Rhea Island to able to not only grab the last few bits and bobs when it comes to the forms of the new Cocos to obtain, but also we finally managed able to look at the forms of every single side stories between the forms of, well, let's just say, the majority of the remaining side stories, as far as I'm aware, that is most likely for Knuckles. So because of this though, yeah, we did somehow manage to take care of that. So today for this video, and also about the fact that we did somehow manage to explore through a little bit, for the sake of the forms of Chaos Island, to do, you know what I'm saying, multiple tasks here and there, especially noticeable about the fact that I think we've almost done with the forms of those, new Cocos as far as I'm aware. So, speaking of which though, is about the fact that today for this video, about the fact that we'll be able to exponentially try to obtain more new Cocos here and there. But before I get into that though, let me quickly go ahead and change up the background music here, so just in case we're able to hear, you know, different variety when it comes to the forms of the music selection, and that's what I can really think about. So, yeah, it's been about a week ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, because as far as what Ray has already explained about this already, ever since about a week ago, obviously about the fact, as you probably already know, I had a bit of a headache during the forms of it on last Thursday as far as I'm aware. So, but either way though, I'm guessing because about the fact that maybe because I was a little bit slightly tired, but luckily though, during the forms of today, which, by the way, today's date of course is the 1st of August today. In this case, in 2023 today. So relatively speaking, I can't even believe we actually on the 8th month of the forms of 2023 so far. So relatively speaking though, about the fact that I think straight to the point that we're now on to presumably the final month of summer season. So because of this though, it's kind of sad about the fact that we aren't able to wait until another year, until when summer starts again, during at some point at the beginning portion of June. Well, aside from the fact that maybe we'll get ourselves some bit of an opportunity to able to actually announce even more games in the future, and well, it's hard to tell for that point really, because of how the fact that we're still on 2023 of course, so everything else will get ourselves some high expectations during the forms of in 2024 and onwards in some cases though, and looks like I somehow accidentally fall off, so whoops. So, again, it's been about a week ago since I've last played this, so, yeah, I do need to get a little bit of practice with the forms of the momentum as well as physics in mind, but either way, though, I'm sure I'll try to able to get used to that. So, anywho, though, and something I will also want to point things out as well, and that will have to be about the fact that, well, speaking of which, though, is about the fact that I'm very happy to report that, obviously, we're about to able to actually see certain exciting stuff. Specifically, well, although, as you probably already know about the fact that obviously during at some point until tomorrow, that originally though, that Ray the Flying Squirrel was expected to able to go back into Super Mario RPG, but as it turns out about the fact that as far as what we already established that before, that tomorrow that Tiana was expecting to go back into Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe tomorrow, so just in case about the fact that she will definitely need to catch up for that particular game before we decide able to play other Nintendo Switch games on our own time, such as for instance with the you know what I'm saying, with Pikmin 4, and especially noticeable with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom respectively, in addition to that with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, while despite the fact that we're still now waiting for DLC 3 to come out. So but either way though, I suppose we're able to find out more details about that particular topic and during at some point in the future. So but either way, something's worth also noting for, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, according to the forms of let's say in one of those channels specifically, that I think it was by the names of the forms of in Facebook specifically, that they somehow managed to able to spot it. Not only the Sonic's model, but also with Tails' model and Knuckles' model, which that could be something related to the forms of maybe they'll try to able to start to do some filming for the sake of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 scenes. Although, the only downside about that is, though, is about the fact that, well, potentially speaking, it was potentially is going to be a leak, but as a result of that kind of stuff, though, I'm still very intrigued, able to actually see what this is going on, especially concerning about a particular point where, that, after all, that we've only got about quite a lot of days to go until Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is about to be on the horizon. So as a result of that kind of stuff, though, despite the fact that we still have to able to go through, Knuckles the series first on Paramount Plus, despite the fact that we still haven't got the actual trailer for the series yet, and especially concerning about that particular point where it's kind of bad enough that we still haven't actually access to Paramount Plus as the actual account. So, yeah, that might be a prime example of that. And, yeah, let me quickly go ahead and change the settings quickly, because obviously about the fact I like able to put in certain music in a loop, because obviously with the forms of the short amount of time, it just feels a bit fast and quick for my liking, so I'm also able to go for loop 1 song, just in case about the fact that we can able to just listen to that amazing soundtrack, like for instance with Kingdom Valley based off from Sonic 06, so but either way though, I think it's to be more specifically, it's based off from, I would say The Wind portion of that particular music song as far as this is concerned, because I know for a fact that when it comes to Sonic 06 soundtrack, they obviously do manage to bring in different segments of the actual, like, wow, it's hard to explain really, so either way, and yeah, because as a result of that kind of stuff though, they did say about the fact that they were starting able to film the actual London clips for the sake of the films by the end of this month, which appears to be the 31st of August. So, but either way though, my expectations are super duper high at this point in time, especially concerning about the particular point where, well, despite the fact that, on the other hand, that unfortunately though, we actually stumbled across an issue where, relatively speaking though, is about the fact, you remember what, Ray the Flying Squirrel has already mentioned about this ever since in Super Mario RPG Let's Play, that obviously about the fact that there's a writer's striking has been going on, and in terms of the films of the films has been delayed and stuff like that, I've found quite a few delays here and there, as of right now. For instance, about the fact that Sony's Spider-Man universe actually got delays. So, for instance, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is basically it's like a sequel to Across the Spider-Verse, has been delayed indefinitely. So, either way, though, we have no idea what the heck is going to be happening for that particular film's production-wise. So, because of that, though, yeah, it seems kind of unfortunate. So, we have to wait for, well, let's say a very, very long time, but then again, though, the speculations are actually going to get, you know, substantially high and stuff like that to able to actually realize about the fact that, well, at least on the upside is, though, we still actually got ourselves across the Spider-Verse after all. So, but either way, though, I apologize for my tongue twisting in the end, folks, but that's just because about the fact that, like I said before, it's been a week ago since I actually have last played this. So, and I think exponentially speaking, though, is about the fact that, well, there's also another thing worth noting for, is that the third Venom film is now going to be releasing at some point until next year, in specifically July the 12th in 2024. So, yeah, I guess it's that. And finally, in terms of the films of another film called Cavern the Hunter, has now been delayed at some point on August the 30th in 2024. So, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate though, especially concerning about the particular point where both of them are entirely in Marvel related. So, I'm guessing because of the films that, like I said before, the writer's strike has been going on. So because of that though, it seems kind of unfortunate, as I mentioned this before, but relatively speaking though, that totally seems the case when it comes to, like, well, for the majority of this year so far, this feels a bit mixed bag in my opinion, just like the films of how it does it in 2022. However, I will give 2022 some credit for is about the fact that obviously I, you know, really enjoyed 2 holidays, obviously, one on abroad, and on top of that with the films of someplace in the UK, so just to have some bit of time to relax. But either way though, that might be well, hard to explain really. So, anyways, let's go and continue further on, because obviously about the fact that sometimes that, again, the good thing we actually place certain markers on the actual, some spots of the actual map on the Chaos Island, so just in case we can able to actually locate not only, certain musical notes, but also with the forms of, new Cocos to obtain as well. So, relatively speaking though, speaking of the forms of, new Cocos to obtain, that, I believe we've almost finishing up with the forms of the rest of the Cocos to obtain, potentially speaking. So, yeah, that comes off as way too quick for certain capacity, but as a result of that kind of stuff, though, I honestly don't mind about it too much, so... Because, you know, I just want to be, like, faster than the speed of light, so... Which I have no idea why I explain any of this specific stuff, though, I have to admit. So, but either way, oh jeez, I somehow missed that particular rail grind right there, because I was expecting it to try to able to go to, that particular island over there. So, but either way, though, where that particular marker was actually placed. Although I will admit, though, right away, like I said before, that Chaos Island is going to be one of the biggest islands in the game, just because about the fact of the continuous island hopping, and especially it doesn't help about the fact that when it comes to collecting everything in Chaos Island, will probably take me a long time to do it. So as a result of that kind of stuff, though, yeah, this is a perfect example of why. That this particular playthrough, alongside with the forms of Super Mario RPG as well, can sometimes take a bit while, and especially noticeable with Donkey Kong 64, back in during the forms of the beginning of 2023 for sure so far, and relatively speaking though, that might be seems totally being the case when it comes to like tackling through bigger games in general, at least relatively speaking though, about the fact that, well, dang it, I somehow screwed it up. Yep, I got screwed up. Especially noticeable, it's bad enough if it was on nighttime, and as a result, I can't usually see the spike balls on the actual wall, so... Because I will admit though right away, sometimes with new Coco obstacles and all that stuff, I totally get it because of its challenge, but they are so obsessive with the forms of the whole bunch of spikes. Like, what is this, like Sonic Unleashed DLC all over again? Well, aside from the fact that luckily it's actually super duper short, so because of this though, and it looks like we actually obtain every single new Cocos in Chaos Island. So all we need to do now is just to able to actually focus on, you know what I'm saying, the 5th and final island. But either way though, expecting about the fact that we still haven't exactly heard about anything, for the sake of the forms of the 3rd and final DLC for free. But I suppose we're able to find out more details about that at some point in the future. So, but either way, is it possible I can able to actually climb up to these specific walls or something like that? Let me just, jump from rock to rock. Oh, okay. There we go then. I almost assume about the fact that, normally I can't do that, but luckily for this particular segment right there, I can able to actually climb onto that specific, rocky structure and stuff like that. So, that should be pretty swell. Especially noticeable is how super duper quick to do it, because usually, relatively speaking, unlike, Link from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you have to rely on the stamina meter until you're able to... Well, you know what I'm saying. Alright, so let's just go through here to this dash panel. So, just in case we can able to... You know what I'm saying, keep on hunting for more of those musical notes that we can exponentially try to able to complete our jukebox. Well, I'm not exactly sure if we can able to exactly try to complete the jukebox anytime soon, because obviously about the fact that, as you probably can tell, as I mentioned this before, that Chaos Island is going to be the longest island to do when it comes to collecting everything. So, which, other than the fact that, well, I will try my best to able to actually be as quick as possible when it comes to forms and trying to able to do some more filming segments to do, and on top of all that stuff though, some occasional moments that I have to able to go back onto the forms of big fishing spots just to ensure about the fact that I can able to catch every single like fishes and stuff like that. It's kind of a shame about the fact that during the course of the actual like Fishopedia specific segment on big fishing, that it doesn't show us the actual question mark segment, for the sake of the forms of certain stuff you haven't catch in the, each and every single island, so you always have to stumble across into very identical fishes, and especially noticeable some rare occasions that you come across into some cool Sonic references here and there, like for instance with the forms of spring, goalpost, and especially noticeable with just anything else in general, so... And conveniently enough though, is about the fact that, like I mentioned this quite a few times actually, is about the fact that we've almost finishing up with the forms of Big's fishing entirely. Well, aside from the fact that we've already got ourselves every single egg members, which again, if we completely done with the forms of Big's fishing for the sake of capacity, then obviously about the fact that I'll try to show you guys the forms of every single egg members as much as possible. So, but either way, speaking of which though, let me go ahead and go to Big's fishing right here. Although, exponentially speaking though, we still need able to try to get ourselves the forms of certain scrolls, for not only for Elder Coco, but also with Hermit Cocos as well. So just to ensure about the fact that we can able to actually access to the remaining fast travels in particular, so... But, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that those other three films, as I mentioned earlier, has been officially been delayed due to the writer's strike. So because of that, though, at least luckily for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 doesn't get delayed so far, which I guess that's a good thing, because aside from the fact that it's still going to be expected to be releasing at some point until in 2024, by the end anyway, during roughly about Christmas time. So, but either way though, oh wow, I realized I got the actual scroll right from the start. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. But either way, I suppose we should probably be able to explain another topic at this point, and that's will have to be by the forms of... Well, apparently though, is about the fact that despite it's going to be a leak and rumor situation again, but apparently though, about the fact that Universal is about to be opened up the next theme park, which as a result is going to take place in Florida, and as a result it's going to call it DreamWorks Land. So yeah, apparently that DreamWorks is about to be getting yet another amusement park, except this time it's going to be based around from other DreamWorks properties. So as a result, it was also expected to be up and drain at some point until next year, but then again though, it's just all about speculations at the moment, so either way though, because chances are though, sometimes it's hard to predict of the forms of if it's going to be real or not, so... But either way, I think that's as far as I can say about the forms of news and discussions alike, especially noticeable because, well, on the other hand, I was very excited able to know of what's going to be up next, for the sake of the forms of how the Sonic 3 movie scenes is going to turn out, but either way though, then again, we'll have to wait and find out, and during at some point until the next couple of months, or something like that, so... And there we go, now we actually got ourselves the Hermit Coco scroll, so that way we can now able to actually, you know, fast travel to the forms of that particular point, so... Although, I was expecting if I was trying to able to fully level up my not only strength and defense during the forms of that particular point, but I'm afraid to tell you we got able to wait for that, and during at some point, in if it's possible that it will happen in this first day in general. So because of this though, because like I said before, that Tiana is about to be preparing to go back onto... Oh yeah, that's what happens if you don't manage to press that particular button, if the fish has got caught in the actual hook, and then basically you get able to find another one, so... And then if you mess up with that particular ring's timing, then obviously that you didn't get a chance to able to get any of one of those fishes, or objects, or anything else like that, so... God, I could imagine about the fact that if we dare come across into Froggy though, that would be a pretty weird coincidence, although, unfortunately, that's not be the case. So, oh jeez, we got an alligator, jeez. But either way, as I mentioned this before, depending on what islands you go into, they all have exactly the same fishes or fish types, and especially noticeable with certain objects you do come across into every once in a while, so... Oh yeah, and another thing I would like to mention, unfortunately though, I no longer have myself not only Paddington 1, but also Paddington 2 as well, both on DVD, but that's just because about the fact that, well, on the other hand, I don't mind about it too much, but I will admit though right away, I'm obviously almost going to be moving on to the new franchise I was really into, and especially noticeable about the fact that my DVD shelf is almost going to be running out of space during that specific time. Especially noticeable, I'm now really into the films of the Mission Impossible franchise, well, to be more specifically, the film series in general. Whilst I haven't exactly seen the TV series, because I know for a fact that the Mission Impossible, you know, as far as the actual thing itself goes, is obviously based off from a TV series, which I have heard about it, but I've never actually got interested with the films of the TV series, because to me, the film series is the one I'm usually highly anticipated for, and especially noticeable about the fact that, like I said before, that I seriously cannot wait until part 2, until next week, and that might actually conclude the rest of the entire Mission Impossible film series, and relatively speaking now, that will be the case for the sake of the films of how the fact that some of these stuff will have to move on, or anything else to be more specific. So even though despite the fact that Mission Impossible 2 is definitely the weakest installment, of what I've heard anyway, which I have seen it already, but as a result that I have no words to say, so anywho though, aside from all that stuff though about the fact that, and also another thing is worth noting for when it comes to my DVD shelf right now, as I said before, it's almost running low for the actual space thing, but, potentially speaking though, once the actual Sonic the Hedgehog 3 DVD was expected to be releasing, from my speculation anyway, will be in 2025, and on top of that, with the films of the next Mario movie, or the next Nintendo movie, depending on the forms of the actual development, and especially noticeable with, as I said before, the writer's strike has been going on recently, so because of that though, yeah, we should have to wait and find out, especially concerning about that particular point where, you know what I'm saying, like I said before, we're in the beginning portion of August right now, so because of this though, and exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that we've only just got about roughly 3 months left now until WarioWare Move It is going to be releasing on the Switch, and as far as I'm aware about the fact that, well, again, as far as I'm aware, that certain data mines did somehow manage to suggest that they were expecting to able to do the Pokemon Presents Direct at some point in this month in particular, because I know for a fact that while looking back in 2022, which was last year, they obviously not only bring the Pokemon Presents Direct, but also with Splatoon 3 Direct. I almost say Splatoon 2 for some reason, because I know for a fact that, well, that game has been out for a very long time, especially noticeable, it's been about 6 years ago since when Splatoon 2 first came out on the Switch, which is basically like the expansion to Splatoon 1, so as a result about that particular point where that exponentially, I'm not exactly sure how many Directs that we might consider able to actually come across into for this month in particular, but my guess it will be only one, because obviously Pokemon Presents will always attempt to happen for every single, like, you know what I'm saying, August months in each and every single year, so at least if I was assuming so anyway. So anyway, let me go ahead and buy some more blue Seeds of Defense, as well as red Seed of Defense, or the red Seed of Power, as well as what I meant to say. Because, again, I apologize for my commentary is a bit slightly iffy at this point today, but that's just because about the fact that, like I said before, it's been about a week ago since I've last played this, so. But either way, though, because again, trying to able to actually go for this entire fully 100% completion just sometimes might take a bit of very, very long time, especially noticeable that, although it's not too bad on the Switch version, mind you, because I can play the game on the go, like I mentioned this before. In addition to that, though, is about the fact that with the amount of load times you have to go through, that sometimes, I will admit though right away, is that the load times might take a bit of a while to load, even though especially noticeable with there's going to be a lot of pop-ins from time to time, usually on the worst case scenario on the Switch version, which I totally get it, because on the actual, like, game card or anything else like that, whilst compared to, usually for not only for the PlayStation 4, but also with the, any systems for that matter. Well, I know for a fact that for one thing, on PlayStation 5's case, they do somehow manage to able to get themselves an improvement in loading times because of the forms of this massive hardware, or potentially speaking now with the forms of something else entirely, so. But anywho though, now we can able to actually go ahead and just meet up with the forms of not only Hermit Coco, so we can able to actually upgrade our not only defense but also strength as well, so just in case we can able to deal with the forms of certain guardians a lot easier. And god dang it, I'm always off by 1 level left for here we go again. Oh jeez, I definitely need to able to grind as many of those the red seed of power again, so just in case I became full strength. But either way though, I suppose we'll have to wait for that once we get the forms of, well, the next island in general. So either way though, god dang it, I was literally so close to able to actually make this happen. Oh well, I suppose it really doesn't matter anyway. So, and also I've noticed about the fact that with this infamous, amount of those memory tokens that, as I said before, sometimes it can take a while to able to obtain as well, because some of them are actually kind of like spaced out, and some of them are actually quite cramped at points. But truth be told though, about the fact that, well, at the very least we've already managed able to see every single side stories in journey forms of not only in Chronos Island, but also with the forms of Iris Island, and especially noticeable with Chaos Island as well. So, but either way, in terms of everything else I could possibly say about this at this point today, honestly guys, there's not much else I can talk about, aside from the fact that, like I mentioned this before, it's a shame about the fact that I no longer have myself Paddington 1 and 2 on movies department on DVD. That's just because about the fact that I was trying to able to rearrange certain shelves of my DVD department when it comes to based off of my favorite franchises, and some obscure ones as well. So, but either way though, that's what I'm going to do. So, in addition to that though, with the forms of how the fact that, well, as far as what we, I believe what Maxi has already said about this already, ever since in Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance version, that's, truth be told, about the fact that he obviously just somehow no longer have us, or we, no longer have ourselves the forms of not only Frozen 2, but also with the forms of Ralph Breaks the Internet, and especially noticeable with Encanto as well. But that's just because about the fact that with Ralph Breaks the Internet, while looking back on it though, I suppose we'll let some toys else be able to actually mention more details about that particular film at some point in the future. But either way though, because chances are though that, well, because usually relatively speaking though, about the fact that I'm just pretty much excited when it comes to the forms of when it gets very close to October at this rate. Although, mind you, about the fact that despite the actual weather conditions is still pretty bad in the UK, which I know for a fact that because the reason why they do this is because of the forms of after the events of that massive heat wave ever since in last year, in July 19th most likely. And good lord, while looking back on it though, jeez, I can't even believe we actually just managed able to sit for that stuff. Although, speaking of which though, it's about the fact that I, for whatever reasons, somehow managed able to lose interest of able to actually go back watching, the Cuphead show. But that's just because about the fact that at this point in time, I'm now into the forms of Sonic Prime. And despite the fact that we now need to wait for the 3rd season is going to be on its way, which again, I'm probably not going to go to any spoilers territory at the sake of time, but that's just because about the fact that I just want to let you guys see it for yourself, especially noticeable because, let me tell you, the 2nd season is, all in all, I will have to admit it though right away, it is definitely miles better than the forms of how it does it on the 1st season, because everything else starts to get a little bit more interesting, and especially noticeable with the plot significance though, that it should make things a little bit more, well, again, I'm probably not going to mention any details for that particular topic, because otherwise that I'm not going to mention any spoilers for the time, so anywho though, aside from all that stuff though, is about the fact that the reason why I'm no longer going to be able to actually watching, the rest of the Falls of the Cuphead show, although don't get me wrong, the presentation is nice, but I will admit though right away, it just feels a bit all over the place when it comes to likely for its, I don't know, humor, or potentially speaking with how these voices turns out to be. Well, I don't know about you, because relatively speaking though, I haven't really touched that particular series since about a year ago, since during the forms of that particular biggest heat wave temperature during the course of in the UK's country-wise. So, but either way though, and also another thing is worth noting for is about the fact that I also want to classify for something about the fact that I pretty much already lost interest with the forms of G5 of My Little Pony again. But that's just because about the fact that, as I mentioned this before, that relatively speaking though, they somehow retconned the forms of Generation 4's lore, which is especially noticeable about the fact that to me, G4 is the most popular series of the bunch, which I totally understand from that perspective moments, especially because of all that humor, as well as charm, and especially noticeable the amount of adventures they go to, and locales to explore. But then again though, it bears repeating for the sake of the forms of why I prefer G4 over the likes of G5 and any other G generations for that matter, because obviously about the fact that G4 is so unique, to me anyway, and especially noticeable because of, you know, one of those same, person, specifically Lord Farst, managed able to also make the original Powerpuff Girls series, so that's the perfect example of why that those two things combined are pretty cool. I will admit though right away, despite the fact that, well, still, I'm the brony, so deal with it. So, anywho though, yeah, there's not much else I can say, because obviously about the fact that I've already mentioned about the fact that it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that certain films have been delayed due to the writer's strike, so but hopefully things gets calmed down until specifically the later days to come, but it's hard to tell on that front, especially noticeable because relatively speaking though that we're still on 2023, and on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that, well, exponentially speaking I just got no reason to more to think about it. Alright, so gonna have to make myself a massive leaps of faith right there in order able to actually just go ahead and obtain ourselves the next collectible there. And as you can tell, I changed the music into Lava Reef Zone Remix, which is essentially based off from Sonic Mania, so just want to classify that right from the start. And exponentially, we finally made our way to this particular point right there, which is basically we got a music based off from the continuation of Chaos Island, essentially. So, but I suppose that's one thing I should probably point out right away about the fact that, like I said before, I was expecting to able to try to get as many of those musical notes as possible, but sometimes though they are kind of easy to obtain, but some of them are actually kind of tricky to reach because of this unexpected places to reach into. But exponentially speaking though about the fact that once you're able to try to memorize certain locations throughout, then you shouldn't have that much trouble with it. So either way, that must have been said something. So anyway, so I suppose that we're basically almost done with this, although still it's a bit weird about the fact that they could be bothered able to include the music note completion list for every single island of the entire game. So as a result, they're just for bragging rights for the sake of the forms of trying to listen to them during the forms of the overworld segments. So, and I realized that one of the music notes is going to be further away. So yeah, I'm not too surprised there, especially noticeable about the fact that, as I mentioned this before, Chaos Island can take a very long time to able to complete everything, especially with those godforsaken memory tokens that we have to obtain. So yeah, this might take a while, or a very long time as far as I was going to be bringing this out. So, but either way, that's what I can really say about this. So either way though, I suppose when it comes to taking down the rest of the Guardians anyway, that also might take a very long time as well, but that's just because you need to find out specific ones that you haven't exactly defeated yet, because I know for a fact that we pretty much roughly at 50% when it comes to defeating certain Guardians for each island. Well, apart from the fact that we've already managed able to fully complete everything from Kronos Island, because you know Kronos Island is essentially one of the easiest islands to go through. So, but either way, that must have been said something, so. And there's also another thing that's worth noting for, I still haven't heard anything for the sake of the forms of Capcom 74 just yet though, aside from the fact that as far as what Ray has already explained about this already, or perhaps even maybe Silver has already mentioned about this as well, that he obviously about the fact that he invited Maxi to able to actually join in the forms of Bingo Battle, even though despite the fact that Maxi plays pretty average when it comes to the forms of playing Pikmin 3 Deluxe, but that's just because about the fact that he, obviously more into the forms of, playing through, you know, the Wii versions of, Pikmin 1 and 2, respectively, despite the fact that, well, to be speaking, sometimes the actual, aiming wasn't exactly the most accurate in the world, but either way, though, that must have been said something, so, yeah, it seems it's kind of unfortunate I can't go for that quickest method to be able to actually get into that particular, circular tower thing. So, for now, I might as well take a break on, Chaos Island for now on, and just start focusing on the next island, which it might be seems unnecessary, but I just want to get this out of the way, because obviously about the fact that we technically already managed to complete everything in, Rhea Island, but the reason why I came here in the first place is because there are certain musical notes I somehow missed throughout, because obviously we, the last time we came in here is about the fact that we need to shut down every single towers. So beneath away though, hopefully we'll try to able to, you know, find every single musical note, and potentially speaking, we no longer become corrupted. So because of that though, thanks to, well, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy essentially. So beneath away though, yeah, that's what I can really think about it, so. And also, I just stick up the actual music based off Sonic Lost World in Sky Road Zone 2. In this case, really cool music, I might add, because it almost reminds me of Chinese vibe to it in the beginning, which is especially noticeable about the fact that that was the point where you're able to fight against with Zavok, the leader of the Deadly Six, whilst compared to the 3DS version, they have to deal with this very god-awful gyroscope motion controls. You have to take control of the actual rocket and able to go from one place to the other. Like, seriously, I'm also able to actually mention more details about that. Once we get to the forms of in October, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's able to discuss on looking back on not only in Sonic Lost World for the Wii U, but also on the 3DS as well, which, then again, we'll save that particular topic for later time, so. But for now on though, let me go ahead and quickly concentrate, just trying to able to find as many of those music notes as much as possible. So, but either way though, just to ensure about the fact that we can exponentially try to able to proceed for this point. So, yeah, I guess there's not much else to say, as I said before. I will promise about the fact that once we get to on Thursday, I should probably explain more details on that specific topic, but then again, no, we'll have to wait and find out, so. Anyway, so, at least potentially, luckily though, we don't have to worry about trying to able to deal with the falls and climbing up the tower again, and especially noticeable about the fact that there aren't any enemies to be involved, able to fight against. During the course of the actual, the grassy, field parts of this particular island, so because of this though, you don't need to necessarily worry about any of those things anymore, so. Aside from the fact that we keep on constantly trying to able to max out our skill points for some reason, I know for a fact that because of how the fact that we constantly performing a lot of tricks and such, which, honestly, I couldn't help myself about the fact that how cool the trick system in this game can be, even though it matches kind of like the exactly the same kind of vibes to it as in Sonic Generations or something like that, but that's why I feel like, I guess. And also we got ourselves this very awesome music in the background, which is based off from Sonic Adventure 2, Green Forest. So, yeah, blows up, or something like that. So, but either way though, I've got no words to think about it, so. I don't think there's any musical notes on the bottom portion of this island, but I do know there's another 2 notes back there, so we'll definitely have to be able to find those. Because again, once we completely finish up with the forms of trying to hunt for those music notes, then obviously this entire island will be done for now. So, because again, that this island is the most shortest islands to explore, because of how the fact that it doesn't take that very long to be able to actually get to this point once you first got there, despite the fact that you have to get a lot of usage on trying to deal with the forms of some tough platforming here and there. And in addition to that, though, is about the fact that, again, if you manage to set the actual thing on easy mode, then you have no issues for able to actually keep on falling off most of the time during the forms of this particular part. So, at least if I was assuming so anyway, because I've never actually experienced easy mode on my own time, because obviously I'm up for the challenge by going for hard mode, because I will say the hard mode is definitely a bit cakewalk, up until when it gets to the point until when it gets to the finale portion, which, my god. Again, I should probably save that particular topic once we're done with most of the stuff in this game has to offer, with all these musical notes that needs to be obtained, as well as all the memory tokens, if possible, and especially noticeable with just anything else in general. So, but either way, because again, I'm gonna able to actually just try to unlock as many of those stuff as much as possible. And wow, that's the longest drop dash I've ever somehow pulled this off. Okay, that's kind of legitimate, so... Alright, so let's just go ahead and go drop down from here to obtain another music note down there. And I think, if I recall correctly, that when it comes to like the final two music notes towards east, somewhere in the east, obviously about the fact that we might come across into that music notes that we do need to require a bit of platforming here and there. But then again, we'll focus on that in a moment, because we need to try to go after that music note somewhere around here. So either way, this one is pretty simple to able to actually get to this point. But then again though, if you dare go into underwater, then obviously about the fact that if you dare boost while in underwater, obviously that you will slow down, so... Now, I can't believe by saying this, it's about the fact that when it comes to the amount of boost wheels that we're expecting to get, we can probably get up to like 5 wheels once we're able to actually fully go ourselves every single new Cocos of this particular portion of the game has to offer. So, yeah, I somehow managed to fall in the water, but that's okay, because either way, unlike Link though, where basically if you run out of stamina as Link, that you obviously will drown and you somehow respawn into that recovery portion, whilst it kind of does the same thing for Sonic, except the fact that you do have an oxygen meter, which meaning if you run out of oxygen, you will die and you have to be able to go back into this respawn point. So, anyway, so let's just go ahead and keep on doing some double jumps here and there, so just in case I can reach up to the surface above. And I think if I recall correctly, we need to hop into this particular island over there, so just in case we can able to just, well, go up to the little staircases of any sorts, and, well, we somehow made our way to that particular music note right there. And I think we've only got one left, which is pretty much straightforward. So, in some cases though, let me quickly go ahead and do a jump boost here. And, suffice to say, I think it's somewhere in here, so... And obviously this music is obviously based off from Sonic 06, His World, and that was actually the E3 version of that track, which I will say, that is actually a pretty cool rendition of His World, to me anyway, especially considering that will be reused for the sake of the forms of Super Smash Bros. Brawl in one of those musical tracks. So, and that was it. That was completely done with everything for the sake of the forms of Rhea Island, because as I said before, this particular island is not that very long. So, yeah, with that being said, we're now going to be going back onto the forms of Aranos' Island. So just in case about the fact that we can able to sort out the rest of the stuff in that particular island, and once we're done with that, we'll go back and forth in between each and different islands in particular, so we can able to finish everything off. So with that being said, we got the ending off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers. That will have to be about the fact that we'll be able to do some more stuff in Aranos' Island for not only side stories, but also with some other stuff here and there as well. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Later, fellas.